Hello and happy days to you folks. I hope you guys are having an absolutely amazing day today. So today I'm doing on my Friday, I do top 10s of various things. I started off by doing top 10s of movies and the different genres, the three main genres we cover on this channel for writing stuff, science fiction, fantasy, and then I moved to other things too, and then I decided to move to the fiction and things you should read. That this channel was designed to do reviews of that are older. I did my top few shorts, top few authors, and then my top my top 30 books. 3 separate top 10s for you folks, and then I turned it to short stories. We just did my first top 30, but I'm such a big fan of short stories. You know, short stories for most of creation were being written at a faster clip than novels were. Right? Today, novels are sort of the default style of reading, and that sort of thing too. But you know, you have lots of short stories and that sort of thing, all but on luck for you folks, and I prefer the horror short story to the novel because it's easier to keep a nice atmosphere, a nice trick ending, that sort of thing. You don't have to worry about making people do different things and have different concepts and have to deal with fake outs and that sort of thing too, right? Get to deliver it, get to the point, get the scare and that little spook value, the twist ending, and then move on, right? That sort of thing too. Now I did, in my first initial genre of fantasy was fantasy. I encountered H.P. Lovecraft, J.R. Tolkien, another person who just has initials before name. In grade school, his Hobbit and his Lord of the Rings, and then that became my favorite genre. And then I did read a lot of contemporary stuff growing up as a kid. And I grew up in '76. I was born in '76, right? And so I grew up in the '80s. I read him and a lot of other people that were being published at that time too, like R.A. Salvatore became my favorite author, Michael Moorcock too, going back and reading some of his stuff from high school. And then after I got into college, in my junior year, I encountered a 3-volume collection of H.P. Lovecraft stuff in the horror side of things. Loved it lots. One of those was for the Cthulhu Mythos. One of those was for his fantasy novels and fantasy short stories set in dreamlands, and one of those was just traditional horror stuff. In the early era of his career, loved it much. I actually went and read a bunch of other things, and all of the collections and that he did are ghost rights, like the Mound, or edits, like the Night Ocean with Reggie Barlow, and that sort of a thing too. And I've read them all and have enjoyed them lots. And I have read thousands of horror and other short stories over my life, and then probably more than 1,000 short stories in the Cthulhu Mythos and those sorts of things. So you'll see lots of horror, lots of Cthulhu Mythos. But because you will see some fantasy stuff. I've gone back and read a lot of classic fantasy authors in the pulp there, like Clark Ashton Smith or Robert E. Howard. Fritz Lieber, also he'll be here too. A pretty regular guy. He's a pretty good dude, pretty good author. He's got a lot of Hugo Windsor. That sort of thing too. So you will see the occasional fantasy, but you'll also see some sci-fi too. Because when I was in college, I read some great sci-fi things, and then I read a collection of Hall of Fame works by the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Hall of Fame. So you'll also check out that too. Just as a heads up. Let's get started. My fourth one. So number 10, as a reminder, novellas can't hit here, and this next one's going to be a novella. This is Robert Louis Stevens's Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's from 1886, and it's classic, and this sort of inspired these sorts of things. He also put out Treasure Island, which is very, very popular. Put them on the map in a major way too. And that sort of thing, all been in the books for you folks. And so there you go, good stuff, love it lots. And it's incredibly strong stuff. The idea of this in the science fiction or horror side of things, and depending on how you want to look at it, or both, if you want. But I love it lots. I think great stuff. Creepiness here, and you can see it with like the things that are on like the Hulk and stuff too. That sort of play into it and give it different spins and that sort of thing too. All right, number 9 is in the Hall of Fame and the science fiction, and this is one of my favorite Arthur C. Clarke short stories of the time. It's a classic, hard sci-fi. Basically, it's the 9 billion names of God. It was written in 53. So basically, what's happening with this short story set in our world. It's basically a sect of religious people over in the east, in the Tibetan mountains, have decided that they need to find out all the names of God. And then once they do, they are going to they believe that the world is going to end. So they hire a couple of Westerners to go there, set up computers to speed them up, because they think it'll probably be like it'll be like at least 150 years for them to come up with all the names of God and all the people in that religion. So they hire a couple of Westerners to set up a computer to do it automatically in like 100 days. It can be really fast, love it lots. And so that's basically what's happening here. I love it lots. I love it's quiet and that sort of thing too. And it's strict. And again, science fiction Hall of Fame too. It's number 8 is also a Hugo winner from the 80s, and this is Why I Left Harry's Old Night Hamburgers. It's a sci-fi by Lawrence Watt Evans. It was won the Hugo in 87. This is set in West Virginia, where there is a guy who is hired to work at a local diner. But there are people at nights when he works at late night shift. A local diner in West Virginia, center of the city. He actually has some people that show up that are using weird coins, or may not speak may have weird speakings, and that sort of speak versions of weird dialects, not unusual languages, right? But just things that he has some issues understanding, and that sort of a thing too. And he finds out that this is the center of a that the Harris Heimberg is the center of it's in all of a parallel worlds. And it's in all of them, in all the locations in the world, no matter what's happening, it's in this place, in this location, and that sort of thing. So it's a constant. So everybody gets drawn to it to come and get their stuff and get their money, get their food, and that sort of a thing, and have an opportunity to have and share fun with the people that are out there and exploring the world. And to number 7 is Robert E. Howard's The Fire of Ashburnable from 36. So this is a fantasy-ish style take on the Cthulhu mythos. It's set in Cthulhu mythos. That sort of thing too, but it takes place in the Middle East, and so when I say fantasy-ish, it does have some sort of sorcery feel to it too. Yeah, absolutely. But it's got more of a at the time in the pulp era, there were entire genres of pulp era magazines that were about kind of what they call like Middle Eastern quests and adventures and that sort of thing too. Basically what's happening here is that we have a couple of people that are fleeing bandits, and so they're going to go flee into this section of deserted ruins, and those will be where the ruins are, and that's where the fire area is, and that sort of thing too. And they run there for salt, and that's basically what's happening with them. And it says number 7, already Howard's is it The Fire of Ashburnable. Number 6 is the last one before top 5. This is a horror one. It's called The Night Wire. It's by H.F. Arnold. It was published in Weird Tales in 1926. H.P. Lovecraft considered this one of the best modern science fiction and weird and horror short stories, and he put it in his collection of things that he would have published if he'd ever been asked to put that. I actually read it there too. It's great. It's a very fast read and that sort of thing too. Now the only issue that you need to understand, the Night Wire, is that this is this is back when there were telegraphs that would tell these stories, like AP stories, and that sort of thing. So this is in that era, and so it does assume that sort of thing. Just as but it's creepy. I adore the ending. It has a place setting that sounds like it's from Mexico or Central America or South America too. I've never heard that word before. I think it's a great opportunity, and I've actually used it in some of my things too. Great stuff. It's The Night Wire by H.F. Arnold. It's very short, very classic level. It's in the horror genre. Now, top 5 time. Number 5 is Fritz Lieber's The Jewels in the Forest. And this is from 1939. This is the first short story in the Fafford and Greymouse series. They are a pair of thieves. Fafford is more like Conan back when he was a thief, as a barbarian, and then Greymouse is more dexterous. And these are the first major thieves guilds in fantasy. It's also the first fantasy world that's set with a large city that all those things are set are called in Lankmar, other than other smaller things. Like smaller towns and that sort of thing too. It's very unique, very strong, very influential too. And this is their sort of introduction in what's happening in the Jewels and the Horse. It's great stuff. Love it lots. Next up is my favorite, mainly Wade Wellman short story, and this is Frogfather from 1946. Mainly Wade Wellman was typically known for writing science fiction and sword and sorcery. I'm sorry, not science fiction, fantasy and sword and sorcery. He's actually listed in Appendix N for his Guy Gaxton's first edition of Dungeons and Dragons. As a great influence and a place for you to go to. And I agree, and he does lots of stuff. I think he basically creates the Bard kit, for example, with one of his characters, John Balladeer. And so I would agree with that, and definitely check him out if you haven't heard of him before. But Frogfather is a horror one. Sorry. Fantasy fans, and it's basically what's happening. So it's a classic horror story in my mind. So basically what's happening is you have somebody in an expedition out in the mountains of I think it's in the Appalachian Mountains of where he lived at the time in Carolina, and there is doing an expedition, and this is it's a place that's got a bunch of weird man-eating things and that sort of thing too, and you're going to have out there, and you're going to come across this creature, and that is a huge frog-like creature. That's the kind of character names from. I have lots of things. Absolute classic. That's number 4. Mainly Wade Wellman's The Frogfather. Actually, Frogfather doesn't have D from 46. Number 3 is The Wendigo by Algernon Blackwood in 1910. For you folks, I consider this one of his 3 big classics. For you folks, I actually had him hitting my number 1 spot overall, not just my first 10 chat with The Willows and that sort of thing too. I consider 3 of his short stories to be definitely stronger short stories than some of the rest of his. He's definitely somebody who wrote a lot and that sort of thing too. I think he's one of the best people. It's sort of combining this sense of horror that this short story has, and you'd be like, wow, that's just wow. That's crazy to think about. And then on the other side of things, but his description and his use of prose and that sort of a thing give you a sense of awe. And you say, I wouldn't want that to happen to me, but wow, is it something interesting? A lot of great horror authors have tried to sort of combo that. From Ramsey Campbell, some of his best stuff can hit that later on in his career. H.P. Lovecraft could do that later on in his career too, with things like The Color Out of Space. And I also think that some other authors can sometimes do that too, like a short story that hit earlier in the horror genre called The Night Ocean by Reggie Barlow and H.P. Lovecraft. So I do think that sometimes an author can do it here and there with a nice work, but Algernon Black was the one who can do it most consistently. Basically, what's happening in The Wendigo, in this short story, it's set in the Canadian North. Some folks are out hunting for some stuff when some bad in the wintertime and in the snow era and that sort of a thing too. When some bad stuff happens, that definitely turns them sour. I love it lots. And then number 2 is one of my favorite short stories in the Cthulhu mythos in the modern era, and this is 1980s. This is A Black Man with a Horn by T.E.D. Klein. I think this is an absolute classic. Now, T.D. Klein was mostly known as an editor of things. He typically didn't do a whole lot of writing, but when he did write in the horror genres, man, he delivers. And this is one of my favorite modern Cthulhu mythos stories, right along with a couple of other higher-hitting ones, like Roger's Little Asnes' Novella 24, Views from Mount Fuji, or an emerald that combines an emerald study that combines the Cthulhu mythos with a Sherlock Holmes one by Neil Gaiman. I think this is a classic. I think it's strong stuff. I even think the opening is one of the best horror short stories I've ever seen. And the first line just eats it off the print and that sort of thing. And then it's basically here, this person is an older person. It basically feels like it's a little bit of a biopic in the H.P. Lovecraft of one of his longer writer people that wrote early on in his career, Frank blah, 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 and had a long career that survived past it. But this character was a famous author too, the main character here. Near his end of his era in New York City, where he lives with a bunch of people, and that sort of place because it's nice and cheap, even though he doesn't particularly feel safe in his era, where he can go to shows. People will call him Lovecraft's apprentice, that sort of a thing too, rather than his own author, and that sort of thing too, and showing out the things, even though he was a very popular author, right? And that's the case. You definitely can see Frank Belknap on there too. And then he's like, I was considered an apprentice of Lovecraft, right? We were considered equals, right, amongst ourselves, and that sort of a thing too. And then he shows up that one of the things that he come back from a plane, from an international flight, is somebody from Asia, and he realizes that one of H.P. Lovecraft's things that he used in the Cthulhu mythos is actually in the real world that he exists in, and that's sort of the oeuvre to that. Love that concept. I love the opening, the characterization, love the details, the world building, that sort of thing too. I think it's an absolute classic, and that's T.E.D. Klein's Black Man with a Horn. And then number 1 is back to science fiction. This is Octavia E. Butler's. This is my first thing I ever read by her. It's one of my favorite things that I read in a collection called Dark Matter. That was published in 1999 of a variety of science fiction and fantasy things that were written by African American people in the, actually, there might be some black people in there that just aren't African American. They might be just African or non-American, just black people. But it has a number of people out there that are collecting various things from various things, and then also some are being written brand new for. And this is my favorite science fiction in there. Love it lots. I think she's an absolute classic. Went to a lot of her novels to read it too. And this is 1987. This is the evening and the morning and the night. So what's happening here? This is set in the future. About 50 or 60 years after some major medical conditions like cancer are cured, and that sort of a thing too. But we're finding out that something very similar to Huntington's disease, which I have, has started to manifest itself, and that sort of thing, and become more and more common. This is a science fiction version of Huntington's disease, but it's very similar to it. And this is like a bunch of big jumps and such leaps. She definitely did research on it, and that sort of a thing. I think it's an absolute classic. Love it lots. I think her descriptions and her understanding the condition that I have is definitely very sensitive, very, very compelling. And she's got a lot of empathy, too, for folks like me. All right, so that's number 1, Octavia E. Butler's The Evening and the Morning and the Night from 87. All right, so let's go back over my top 10 short stories once more. Number 10 is Robert Louis Stevens's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Number 9 is Arthur C. Clarke's The 9 Billion Names of God. Number 8 is Why I Left Harry's All Night Hamburgers by Lawrence Watt Evans. Sorry about that, I accidentally closed my window. Number 7 is Robert E. Howard's The Fire of Ashburnable. Number 6 is The Night Wire by H.F. Arnold, sorry. Number 5 is The Jewels in the Forest by Fritz Lieber. Number 4 is Manly Wade Wellman's Frogfather. Number 3 is The Wendigo by Algernon Blackwood. Number 2 is Black Man with a Horn by T.E.D. Klein. And number 1 is Octavia E. Butler's The Evening, the Morning, and the Night for you folks. And so those are my top 10 really fast for you folks. And my next 40 overall. The 4 top 10 short stories for you folks. Now, so have you read those? Have you read them in those? Would you rank them in this order? What would be your top 40 overall and the next top 10, if you will? And that sort of thing too. As a reminder, I'm not a trained, critic. I didn't study English or literary criticism in college. Right? I'm just a fan like you. We're somebody who loves this stuff. I think I would probably, I probably read like 350 or 400 short stories a year. I love short stories. I read tons of photos collections. Just channel did. So you can check that out. I think you'll enjoy it lots. And that sort of thing too, but definitely let me know your thoughts of what you think, what you are, because again, I'm not coming to you from a place of expertise, right? And then on Wednesday, I do a review of older video games. Just a couple of days ago, I did Star Control 2, and the next week I'm going to do Star Control Origin from 2018. just finishing up my Let's Play of Star Control 2 from 1992, so you can also check out those Let's Plays too. And then tomorrow I do something I call Serial Saturday, which is dedicated to the forgotten storytelling genres of movie and TV serials, and that sort of thing too, so you can check that out too. And I'm doing, I just did it, Captain Midnight a couple of weeks ago, so you can check out now the Pirate Treasures in the Caribbean in the mid-30s. I think it's fun stuff like that. So you can check it out too. And then also, I have on Monday I do tabletop reviews of RPGs. Like I'm currently doing Dungeons and Dragons modules. I'm currently reviewing those from the X series from the 80s, from back week. And then on the other 3 days a week, I do reviews of older short stories, science fiction, or novels, or poems. In the three genres that we typically cover: science fiction, fantasy, and horror. So if you just want, if those sound like your work up of tea, or you just want to follow along with this series as we continue to hit up my top 50 next month, and I've got like 50 or 60 more. So we're going to continue as long as I think I've got good stuff to be hitting out of the park and just kind of pulling them out there for you folks. Alrighty, for you folks, all up and down the block. Alrighty, so then please do, if you like that and you just want to follow along, please do all the YouTube stuff and welcome to the channel too, and have a seat. And then do all the YouTube stuff like the subscribe button, like button, bell icon, all that stuff too. And then you can also let me know, as also you can tell from those 7 older reviews that I do a week. That's definitely the passion of this channel, right? Finding these older things for you. And I think you'll enjoy that much too. And so if that sounds like your cup of tea, then great. I hope you'll enjoy it too, right? And it's even where its title comes from. The worst thing about new books. It's a quote by French philosopher Jacques Joubert, who says that the worst thing about them was that they kept us from reading the old stuff. Not that the new stuff is bad by default, right? But you get the idea, right? And with a passion for and these new stuff, the new diversions in our life, we sometimes have forgotten that these things are standing on the shoulders of giants. So let's check out those giants, right? All of it down the bottom. Alrighty for you folks. And then I want to thank you so very, very much for just taking some time out of your day and investing it, right? And watching my video, because we all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions too, right? So like you spent this time with me, that's incredibly humbling, and I appreciate that so very, very much. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.